Hello everyone, it's James Baldwin back for another video on the official Overtake GG YouTube channel, and I am back for another tutorial about F1. F1 2020 is slowly but surely looking towards its final few months before a new game's released, and the following title is expected to feature a lot of changes as Codemasters, the developer of the series, was recently acquired by EA. Fans eagerly await the arrival of F1 2021 to find out what new features are brought into the franchise, so we'll take a look at 5 things that would make F1 2021 better than its predecessor. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel as always on the Overtake YouTube channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any videos moving forward. But without further ado, let's dive straight into the video. Over the past years, the F1 games have each beaten their predecessor in terms of performance and gameplay, yet some things still remain unpolished. One very common problem I think we can all agree on is the issue of reliability. F1 2020 has been plastered with an array of bugs and failures at times that cause the game to stop working or do unintended things. Numerous videos feature bugs that are beyond game breaking. Some of them include cars getting stuck underground, cars being flipped by light contact with a curb, and while these sorts of bugs occurred less frequently as the patch cycle went on, they still ruined a lot of people's races. More serious problems feature bugs with losses of connection, game crashes. Even in the virtual GPs, there are instances in which the game simply stopped working entirely for racers like Lando Norris. Things like that are just a bit unacceptable really, and need to be play tested more before F1 2021 comes out. Something that's not really a problem on the current game, it's more of a wish for the next game, and that would be the inclusion of more customization options. We see it time and time again. The F1 community is super creative, whether it's creating their own team in the My Team mode or simply with liveries, but at the moment the scope for creativity is rather low. Especially with liveries, there are only a certain number of shapes to create a design from, compared to sims like ACC or entirely different games like FIFA. On F1 2020, it's a bit more restrictive. The EA takeover will hopefully help, as they've proven to bring some customization options to other series and games. Especially with the creativity of the YouTube scene in F1, we could be in for a pretty fun year. Apart from the content of the game, the core obviously remains with the driving itself. Now F1 2021 has a very unique opportunity to be the first of its kind when it comes to wet weather driving. The introduction of wet lines similar to what R-Factor 2 packs would be a massive game changer in the F1 franchise. What that means is basically an overhaul of the rain physics. Wet lines in general mean that a driver will have more grip if they take different approaches to corners when it's raining and while they have the wet tyres on the car. For F1 2021, they should copy the real-life lines that racers like Hamilton, Verstappen, all the best wet drivers in real life use, and implement them into the game. With a system like that, you would make the F1 experience much more immersive and more challenging as well. Players would view rain as a chance to be more creative in their approach, and maybe even outsmart their opponents by taking some unusual lines. Adding to that could be the major point of improving the feeling while driving, especially in the dry where the car sometimes lacks control. Now, it's worth saying the dry physics in F1 2020 are already refined, but they could still be improved. The most alarming thing for me is a feeling of numbness sometimes when driving under dry conditions. There's not a big enough connection between the car and the road, which makes it very hard to feel and understand what's going on underneath you. If you're newer to the F1 game, then you might feel like you spin out a lot if you disable the assists, and this is partially due to the lack of connection we just mentioned between the driver, car, and the track. So if you want to learn how to drive without assists regardless, check out one of our videos where we tackle that particular problem. So an improvement in the dry and the wet physics would make F1 2021 the best game for Formula Racing, hands down. Beside the problems with the in-game mechanics, maybe the most important point is the undesirable ranking system. As an F1 esports driver myself, I want the game to be as competitive as possible, but there are some improvements that need to be made. When we think of titles like iRacing, there's serious dedication to creating a proper ranking structure that matches players equally against each other, whereas F1 at the moment goes with a similar and much less transparent system of skill and safety rating. You have a chance of ranking up if you get into the top 50% in a lobby with a higher average skill rating than you have. The same thing applies the other way around. You risk demotion if you have a bad race against lesser opponents. While the intention behind it's okay, the system is very unrefined and needs further overhaul. More often than not, higher ranked players will get matched in lobbies with inferior drivers if the lobby size in their skill group is too small. If they then manage to win by a large margin, they barely gain anything, while they may keep other players from getting into that top 50%. Furthermore, your safety rating is going to suffer if you end up getting shunted into or crashed at any point, and this will result in fewer chances to gain skill rating, which, if you look at it, is completely out of your control. Maybe the idea of a license system isn't so bad. I mean, while the player base might need some time to adapt, it would help level the playing field quite a lot and even open up the door for esports challengers looking to climb through the ranks. If players feel like they're on a journey, then the online mode will become much more competitive and eventually roster the new talent for the big stage, F1 esports. In my opinion, F1 2020 is the best game of the series so far. With every game, developer Codemasters has upped the ante and made an even better version. This opens up the possibility of many improvements in terms of gameplay and content. More creative freedom, upgrades to drive physics, as well as the implementation of wet lines would leave F1 2021 with the best formula gameplay to date. But maybe, most importantly, the improvement of the ranking system to become something that's more rewarding and competitive is the next step to making F1 and the gaming franchise itself as playable as possible. So if these things get implemented, I can only see F1 becoming more popular than it already is. I hope this video has brought you some insight into what an esports driver thinks would make F1 2021 better. Be sure to like the video, and for more content check out the other tutorials I've done with Overtake GG. But I am James Baldwin and I'll see you all very soon.